My name is Austin. My toxic HR boss tried to frame me for sexual harassment and steal $500,000 from me. But she didn't know I was playing the long game. Here is how I destroyed her career and her marriage in a single day. 5 years ago, I was fresh out of college and landed a high-paying job at a multinational trading firm in Chicago. The entry-level pay was amazing, and I was thrilled. But on my very first day, I met our HR manager, Victoria. From day one, Victoria hated my guts. Why? Because during my interview registration, she casually hinted at a bribe to help me pass. I laughed it off and said no. She literally threw my resume into the trash can. If my big boss hadn't stepped in to look for my papers, I wouldn't have even gotten the interview. Since that day, Victoria made my life a living hell. She was a toxic micromanager. She would block useful trading websites, call mandatory long meetings right when the market was volatile, and she even had a habit of stealing my lunch from the office fridge. I kept my head down, brought 2 lunch boxes every day, and focused on being the top trader in my group. Victoria loved attention. Every Tuesday and Wednesday, different guys would pick her up for long 2-hour lunches. But never on Thursdays. Thursdays were family nights, when her clueless husband would bring their 2 kids to the office to pick her up. When our main branch manager moved to another branch, Victoria became the temporary boss. That's when her power trip went wild. She repeatedly blocked my well-deserved promotions, even though my trading numbers were the highest in the office. I had to bypass her and contact upper management just to get my rights. But her final strike was pure evil. She tried to ruin my life with a fake sexual harassment charge. We had a new intern named Chloe who was struggling and crying at her desk due to heavy market losses. I awkwardly patted her back and handed her a tissue to comfort her. Victoria saw this. The next day, she manipulated a desperate Chloe, promising her promotion and money if she framed me for sexual harassment. Because of Victoria's lies, corporate withheld my quarterly bonuses and commissions, totaling almost $500,000. I was forced to watch a 3-hour workplace sensitivity video every single morning at 7 a.m. before starting my actual work. Victoria thought she had broken me. She was wrong. I was just collecting data. First, I found out someone was picking my desk lock during lunch to steal my trading notes. It was Victoria copying my strategies for Chloe. I documented the pattern. Then my trading buddies and I intentionally slowed down our profits, putting the branch in a loss. Corporate sent the big bosses down to investigate. The night before they arrived, I did a little digging. Victoria always left her office computer logged into Facebook and personal email. I opened her messages, and there it was, explicit texts, nudes, and rants about her husband, detailing at least 6 different guys she was cheating with. I emailed the entire chat history to my private phone. On Thursday, the big corporate bosses called us into the meeting room. Victoria started smirking, boldly lying about how I was an insubordinate abuser. That's when I pulled out my cards. I presented a signed confession from Chloe, who had broken down the night before when I showed proof of her stealing my work. Corporate immediately checked the network logs and confirmed the theft. Victoria's face turned pale. They told me my $500,000 would be refunded with an extra $50,000 bonus. But I wasn't done. Right at that moment, I looked out the glass wall and saw Victoria's husband walk in the lobby with their 2 kids. I looked at Victoria, smiled, and said, "Your husband is here." As she stepped out to tell him to wait, I pressed send on my phone, sending the entire cheating history straight to her husband's inbox. Through the glass walls, the entire office watched her husband absolutely lose his mind, shouting at her before grabbing the kids and walking out forever. An hour later, Victoria was fired on the spot and escorted out by security. Last time I checked her Facebook, she was posting, "I'm single because I'm too awesome." Yeah, keep telling yourself that, Victoria. Story 2. I scammed a scammer. A few weeks ago, an obvious online scammer slid into my DMs, trying to pull a classic internet fraud. They demanded $160 for a fake service. Instead of blocking them immediately, I decided to have some fun. I asked for their Cash App info. They gave it to me, expecting a quick payout. Instead of sending $160, I sent them exactly $1. The scammer messaged me instantly, laughing. They said, LOL, wrong amount, but I got the dollar. Just send the remaining $159, and we are good. They genuinely thought I was an idiot who made a typo. So I opened Cash App, typed in $159, but instead of hitting the send button, I hit the request button. Predicting that their greedy eyes wouldn't read the screen, I waited. Sure enough, a second later, they blindly clicked accept instead of decline. Boom! My phone buzzed. I just pulled $159 out of the scammer's bank account. I blocked the lowlife instantly, $159 richer. Easiest money I ever made. Story 3. Oh, it's not your job? It is now. Our final story comes from the military, where lazy bureaucrats always learn the hard way. My dad was a mechanic, and he taught me to take things apart and figure them out. When I joined the U.S. Army, I went into communications, managing radios and electronic gear. Eventually, I was put in charge of a battalion commo shop. Every Monday, we had motor pool maintenance. We had to test all the radios inside the heavy armored Bradley fighting vehicles. One Monday, my team traced a radio failure to a deeply buried part called a slip ring. The problem was, to reach it, you had to dismantle the heavy mechanical interior of the vehicle's turret. That was a job for the mechanics. I went to the motor chief and asked for assistance. The chief looked at me, told me to buzz off, and said, slip ring has wires, so it's a commo issue. Fix it yourself, it's not my job. I asked nicely, I showed him the regulations, but he just laughed and told me to pound sand. All right, message received. I decided to play a little game. I drove home, went to my garage, and packed every single heavy wrench, socket, and impact tool I owned in my truck. I grabbed my portable air compressor and drove back to the base. I told my soldiers to go take a long lunch break. I would handle this vehicle alone. For the next 3 hours, I went full mad scientist inside that armored vehicle. I didn't just remove the parts blocking the radio cable. I unbolted everything. Seats, steel interior plates, armor brackets, shelves. If it had a bolt, it came off. I filled 2 massive empty coffee cans with hundreds of loose nuts, bolts, and washers, and stuffed the rest in Ziploc bags. I finally found the wire, fixed the cut cable in 15 minutes, and verified the radio worked perfectly. My job was officially done. But instead of putting the vehicle back together, I neatly piled the mountain of dismantled steel plates and seats in a giant, chaotic stack inside the vehicle. I put the lids on the coffee cans, zipped the bags, took out a Sharpie, wrote bolts on them, and left them right on top of the pile. I sat by my office window and watched the motor chief walk over to check the vehicle later that afternoon. I swear I saw his head spin around 3 times when he looked inside. The vehicle looked like a bomb had gone off in a hardware store. He marched into my office, red-faced and screaming, demanding I put his vehicle back together. I smiled calmly, shook my head, and said, "Oh, I'm just a radio guy, Chief. I didn't know what parts belonged to you, so I removed everything to reach my wire. The radio is fixed, so my job is done. The rest looks like a mechanical assembly issue, and as you said, that's not my job." That armored vehicle sat completely useless on the commander's weekly failure report for the next 3 weeks, while the mechanics spent hours trying to figure out which bolt went where. From that day on, nobody ever told my team it's not my job ever again.